Welcome back to the program. This is the campaign edition of Choice 2017. On the day, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Jubilee Brigade have decided to tour the north. They're currently in Mandera County. Right after that, he's going to tour the county of Wajir, and tomorrow is going to be in Marsabit as well as Isiolo. On the other hand, NASA leader Raila Odinga, of course, he is the presidential candidate, are at the coast, to be specific, in Lamu. And as I've already told you earlier, from the reports that we played there for you, the president and his Jubilee team were in Nairobi yesterday, trying to make sure that they take advantage of Nairobi County voters, because they stand at about 2 million plus voters. And with me in studio here is John Kagushe. He was with me, and Kakai Kisinja. Finally, you're here, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me just start with you. We've seen the announcement there by the president, literally asking Peter Kenneth to step down. What do you read in that, first of all?
Now, I think to start off, we have to understand, first of all, who is Peter Kenneth. Mm-hmm. And you know that Peter Kenneth was the MP for Gatanga for 2 terms. Yeah. And he did extremely well. Mm-hmm. And at one time, he was named by the parliamentary committee to be the best performing member of parliament, mm-hmm, in terms of the utilization of the CDF. Yeah. And thereafter, Peter Kenneth then tried his luck in a presidential election, mm-hmm, last election, and he did very badly. Now, Peter Kenneth never lost hope. Mm-hmm. And come this election, he wanted to actually vie as a governor under the Jubilee Brigade. He was ideally the preferred candidate for Jubilee. Mm-hmm. And at one time, if you all recall very well, President Uhuru Kenyatta... I think
that you've shared the same sentiments with
yes,
John.
President Uhuru Kenyatta endorsed him, yeah, as the preferred candidate. Yeah. Now, the nature of politics is not about endorsement anymore. Mm-hmm. The nature of politics is just who is so well grounded on the ground. Mm-hmm. And then he faced a very stiff competition against Sonko during the nomination. Mm-hmm. Now, you all recall that he lost the nomination, and he cried saying that the nominations were not fair, and the hula baloo that took about the nomination, and Sonko got about 138,000 votes, mm-hmm, while Peter Kenneth got about 62,000 votes. Yeah. Now, you realize that Nairobi alone as a county has about 2.25 million registered voters as per the IBC statistics. Yeah. Now, Nairobi being the capital city of the country, and Nairobi being a county that is very, where the state house and state machinery is located. Mm-hmm. So the stakes are very high in terms of who actually becomes the governor for Nairobi. Mm-hmm. You do recall one time that the deputy president was saying, how can we have a capital city that we are heading as a Jubilee, but is being managed by the opposition. I think that so the stakes are extremely high. Mm-hmm. Now, what the president has done, basically, he has nailed the last... he has nailed Peter Kenneth completely in terms of killing his political career, mm-hmm, vying as a governor in Nairobi. So why am I saying that?
So the announcement yesterday is definitely a blow to Peter Kenneth.
A very huge blow.
So there are those who are asking, you're a lawyer, I'm sure you understand these things. There are those who are asking, how legal is it? Because this is an independent candidate. This is a person who has been campaigning. He has used a lot of resources. Then why should, the president go ahead and, announce his, candidature to be null and void, literally?
There's nothing illegal with what the president has done, because Peter Kenneth is an independent candidate, so stay independent candidate. What the president has just basically said, if I had him very well, that I have a preferred candidate, and this preferred candidate is Mike Mbuvi Sonko, mm-hmm, and I want you all Nairobians to vote for Mike Mbuvi Sonko. Mm-hmm. He knows very well that Mike Mbuvi Sonko is his preferred candidate on a Jubilee ticket. Peter Kenneth is running as an independent. So it's his problem to deal with this independent candidature.
I'd like to hear John's response to this. No, Kirinyaga County, for example, it has 2 candidates. Yeah. They're all, one is Jubilee, that is the former devolution CS, yes, and the other one is Martha Karua. Yeah. She's also affiliated to Jubilee. Then the president don't go ahead and tell one of the candidates to step down, and prefer the other. Why Nairobi?
First, I'll say there's nothing legal about this issue. Here, this is not a case in a court of law. This is politics. We are out there in the public opinion now. It's actually a public court now. And so by the president doing that for sure, he's so much in his boundaries. He's so much right to do so as a politician. Again, you remember, as we say, Peter Kenneth was preferred. He was a preferred candidate for the president. And even you could tell by the vigor and zest that he was being pushed by the Jubilee headquarters. Now, one of the things you will find with Jubilee, and I think here they have been able to do it better than NASA, is to take care of the counties which are contested. Nairobi is one of them. So Jubilee has ensured that it has only one candidate in those areas. And that is one of the reasons why Jubilee collapsed all its parties and remained as Jubilee. So that can field as many candidates as possible as Jubilee Party. Now, Nairobi is one of the areas which now is trying to ensure that it doesn't have a competitor to the governor position. And that's why the president is discouraging Peter Kenneth. And even by just saying that whether Peter Kenneth resigns or he steps down or not, already the damage is done. Now, look at Nakuru. When the president, the deputy president went there, what did they do? You know, that's also another area which is not, I mean, if you joke around with it, it can easily go the other way. So they were very keen also to ensure that they do not divide votes. And you saw Kinodia now stepping down for Lee Kinyanjui as a gubernatorial aspirant. Go to Narok, for example, whereas NASA has someone from the Chama Cha Mashinani and ODM. Jubilee only has one candidate, Tanui. If you go, that is Tonui. If you go to other areas like even Mombasa, Jubilee has one candidate and NASA has two other candidates. Even go to an area like Lamu, you know, the president got 40% last time, as Raila got 53%, although things seem to have tilted differently. Now, look at that place again. They have, we have an ANC governor, who is actually the reigning governor now. You have a Wiper candidate, you have an ODM candidate, and then you have Jubilee candidate. So Jubilee, go to a place like Bungoma again, which has seemed to also turn its support towards the Jubilee government. Look, Lusaka is even being fielded as a person who is actually going to take that seat easily because there is a Wangamati, and we also have, I think, Kangati, who is, on the other hand...
so basically the president, whatever he did in Nairobi is not unique just to the city? It's not
unique to the city. He has tried to do as much as possible to all the areas. And that is why he's likely to bring more candidates or more MPs and governors and senators and women reps to the house here in the city and also to the COG than the other side, if that actually pays off. But that is the reason why the president has kept on insisting on that. Now, the other issue which I find maybe now a little bit of a disadvantage towards the Jubilee as opposed to NASA is now when it comes to the issue of the independent candidates. Not just in Nairobi, nationally. You see, NASA has pushed away the independent candidates and also the defectors. Unlike Jubilee, Jubilee seems to be embracing them, especially in their strongholds. So again, that will make NASA maybe then bring more candidates who are in their political parties as opposed to Jubilee, which may bring more independent candidates.
We're going to talk about that shortly, and about, you know, the coming up with these new political parties, especially in northern Kenya, that are affiliated to Jubilee. But you've heard his comment there with regards to Peter Kenneth. What do you read in this? Is Jubilee feeling threatened by PK's presence on the ballot?
Actually, Jubilee is not feeling threatened at all. Now, let's take a comparative analysis. Look at what happened in Nairobi in terms of, as a position of governor, in terms of the president anointing or supporting or rallying behind his people to vote for who. Compare that with what happened in Kirinyaga. Okay? Now, in Kirinyaga, the president was faced with two candidates. And when he was asked, who are you going to actually recommend, he shied off. And he said, all of them are in my party. I leave you people for Kirinyaga to do what? To decide. Now, what does that mean when you compare to what has happened in Nairobi? What that means is very simple. Politics is about survival. Politics is about where the stakes are high. Nairobi, the stakes are higher. And Nairobi has realized that Peter Kenneth, whatever happens, he can come closer to Sonko in terms of popularity. So why will I then back a losing candidate? So what I'll do, because I want to get this seat, I'll back the person I'm supporting. In Kirinyaga, I think the president was playing very careful. And he realized it can go either way.
But I'm sure PK supporters are raising an argument of saying, why shouldn't the president be careful in Nairobi as well?
No, I think Nairobi is a done deal in terms of who is getting this seat.
You see, Kirinyaga is a stronghold. So in the strongholds, the president has been a bit more open. He has left people to decide. And you've got also to
and it's a done deal already. Jubilee will take it
exactly.
No, in Kirinyaga, not necessarily. Not necessarily. And you've got also to read the difference between the president's mind and the deputy president. Because the president has been a little bit more open. He has said, let's leave the people to decide in many instances. But the deputy president has been more on the issue of let us have Jubilee candidates on.
Actually, there are people saying the president has borrowed a leaf from the deputy president. We've seen in Uasin Gishu, for example, he openly told one of the candidates to step down for the other. So it seems the president is also doing the same now.
Okay, these people speak as the same, although you can clearly tell in their mind they are also informed by different approaches and different schools of thought. Yeah, but ideally they have maintained that togetherness and unity. Kind of, they have been saying the same thing almost all the places. In fact, if the president says it here, the deputy also backs it up. They have rarely said two different things. That we have to give them credit for. But then you see the case in Eldoret was different, because in Eldoret, the person who was alleged to be more closer to the deputy president was Buzeki, who is an independent candidate, as opposed to the Jubilee candidate. And you see, the deputy president was under a lot of pressure. You remember there even some threats that were coming from Eldoret. Those guys had even threatened that if they see it like it is going the other way around, they can even tell their people to vote the other way around. And the deputy president was under pressure to bring down the tensions and the pressure that was in that place. And so that's why he openly told the candidate to step down. But the case of Buzeki again and Mandago is very different. Buzeki has support on the grassroots, and just like Mandago has. In Nairobi, it is quite different. If you were to look even at the different opinion polls that have been done, because I know we have had about 3 different opinion polls that have been done, you clearly see Peter Kenneth is well below 5%. Actually, he is together with Miguna and the rest.
Of course, there are those who still argue about the credibility of opinion polls, but there's something, I believe we have a soundbite to that. We'll play it once we have it. There's a soundbite there from Peter Kenneth, clearly indicating that Mike Sonko's is like a project of the deputy president. Maybe is such comments that is coming to haunt Peter Kenneth's campaign?
I think Peter Kenneth was very clear in terms of when he bolted and he lost the nomination on Jubilee. He was very clear. I do recall that press statement where he said that he's not blaming the president. And that's why he's going to be an independent candidate, but still aligned to the president's party. But he was still blaming the deputy president.
Yes.
That, okay, my problem in Jubilee is because of the deputy president and because of the politics of the 2022. And I wish them well. And the same sentiments that were brought up by the outgoing governor of Kiambu. Now, but what Peter Kenneth is failing to understand is that the presidential ticket is not about President Uhuru Kenyatta alone. It's a package of the two people. And therefore, whatever it is, President Uhuru will not come out and speak anything different from what William Ruto is speaking. And I agree with what my colleague said, is that they're speaking from the same, they're cooking from the same pot. And so the message and the campaign strategy has to be the same. And so for me, it's an issue of too bad for Peter Kenneth in terms of Nairobi. He has to forget about Nairobi. He's going nowhere. It will be very lucky for Peter Kenneth to score over 62,000 votes, what he got during the nomination. But the good news is this, for Peter Kenneth and all other candidates that might not make it, is that democracy has opened up. And the issue of having independent candidates is a good thing. And there has to be always a start point of people marketing the strategy. And so the issue of the constitutional right which has been given to us of independent candidates is gaining momentum. We actually, right now we're having about 4,000 independent candidates across all the political seats that are being campaigned for. And so we want to see a situation whereby it's no longer about euphoria of a political party. It's no longer about euphoria of a leading party. It's no longer about euphoria of who and who. Now we are breaking that club of someone anointing you to become a popular leader just by virtue of being associated with a political party to what you can do for yourself. And so what Peter Kenneth is doing, he may lose the election, but he's setting also a platform for him as a mobilizer on his own right.
This is a man who served as a Gatanga MP.
Yeah.
He was once a presidential candidate. Actually, there are those who are saying he might be on the ballot come 2022. But with this development, we've seen the president openly telling him to step down. What does it mean to his political future?
Just before I answer that question, the president, by telling Peter Kenneth to step down, was not just speaking to Peter Kenneth. This message was across all the other candidates. Because you have
the independent candidates,
not just independent, also those who are running under smaller parties in Nairobi. Of course, like where he was speaking from, I guess he was speaking from Embakasi Central yesterday. Yeah, you have a candidate there who is running under PNU. I mean, again, when he tells Peter Kenneth, and I think they also share same lineage of people who are more lighter. And when he's telling Peter Kenneth to step down, he's also telling the other guy, this is the Jubilee candidate we have here. If you go to Kasarani, you have Njoroge and Gakuya, Masi Gakuya. Again, he's telling Njoroge, you know, we have Gakuya here as our Jubilee candidate. When you go to Dagoretti, you have Dennis Waweru and KJ. I mean, he's telling Dennis Waweru, yes, you are my good friend. We have worked together very closely, but this is our Jubilee candidate. And when you go even to Roysambu, you have...
But that does not necessarily mean that Jubilee candidates are necessarily stronger than those from the smaller parties. For example, we have Peter Munya on PNU in Meru. We have other candidates from northern Kenya who have come up with these small political parties, of which we're going to talk about shortly.
You know, the whole of this phenomena, the way I would like you to look at it, is that we have Jubilee stamping its authority in contested areas. In areas where they feel that is their stronghold, generally, the silent policy of Jubilee
they leave it for the people
is that they have left it for the people. But in areas which are contested, like Nairobi, Mombasa, Narok, I mean, and those kind of areas, they have been very, very clear that they want to get only Jubilee, one Jubilee candidate in those areas. And Nairobi is so key to Jubilee. Remember last time, even though the president had a slightly lower margin than the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, he also had more members of parliament, and he had even more, if you look at senator, women rep, he took most of the positions in Nairobi, and he would want to maintain that. It's not something that you want to gamble with. Now, you ask Peter Kenneth...
His political future. I'm sure so many people are wondering, you know, what will be his next action?
I have never understood the wisdom in Peter Kenneth's political moves. In the first place, he moved as a presidential candidate against an unbeatable candidate who was coming from his backyard. That in itself was a negative move, especially to the extent that he maintained himself in the opposition until the last minute, when he even seemed to say that he's not clear of where he wants to vie. Again, when he went to the Jubilee party, which was good, and he folded up his party, again, you know, I also question the wisdom of folding up his party, which had gotten some support, especially in the Maasai land and some parts of Rift Valley. Now, again, you find him moving from the Jubilee to an independent candidate. To me, I think at some point he needs to stop the Lone Ranger kind of approach to politics. It cannot be like that buffalo which goes alone, you know, abandoned and lonely. And if you do it that way, eventually you will start isolating yourself, and it's easier to target you as an isolated person. It's better for him to join one political divide. Either he goes full throttle to Uhuru and says, let's work together and work out issues from inside, rather than try to isolate himself. Because in politics, you can't be special. The way, you know, you can't be that performer who is so special that you want to be alone. It can't work. He just has to hold hands with the rest. Or if he is not ready to hold hands with the Uhuru side, then he should go to the other side. Otherwise, if he tries the Miguna antics, he will reduce himself to a non-starter, and his political career may actually end before it begins. We will remain to say that he's one of the guys who had a very brilliant political career, which never was.
Actually, there I will differ with my colleague.
As you react to that, you also mentioned earlier that the president announcement is like the last nail on Peter Kenneth's political
For this
career?
election.
For this election.
For this election. I meant for this election.
Yes.
And I'll differ with my colleague a little bit and take you guys through the analogy and the history of politicians. And politicians mutate and change. So for me, first and foremost, Peter Kenneth is finished in terms of this election. But I don't think that Peter Kenneth is finished in terms of future. And Peter Kenneth might not be looking at this election as a do and die. Peter Kenneth is reshaping his political career for future. And that's a guy to watch. Now, why am I saying this? That politics has a way of mutating and people rebranding themselves. Let's look at Honorable Raila Odinga. Yeah. Look at since the Ford Kenya period time. Look at how he was able to marshal support, take over the Ford Kenya from Wamalwa Kijana. Look at how he formed his own political party. Look at the many joining KANU, after joining KANU. Look at that analogy of event. At that time, somebody would have said this is the end of Raila Odinga because how can he try to attempt to have a coup in Ford?
But that's not the case now.
But that's not the case now. So over the years, he has rebranded himself. Another classic example. Look at Peter Nyang'. Peter Nyang' at one point was pushing to be the...
You react to that.
Peter Nyang' at one point was pushing to be the leader of the Luo. And he actually vied for presidency with the Charity Ngilu, if you all recall, in 1997, under SDP party. And that was the end of him. Not only did he lose presidency, at that time he would have won another seat, never got anything. He went into political sleepland for almost 10 years. Now look at James Boma Orengo.
Yes.
He tried also to become a Luo kingpin.
And the people referred to him as Lone Ranger at that time as well.
Yes, people referred to him as a Lone Ranger. He tried to vie for presidency. He lost miserably that time. I think it was the 97 election or the 2002 election. He lost that time. He went into political oblivion for close to 5 years and came back. Now, most recent one, and look where they are right now. Now, most recent one is Musalia Mudavadi. Musalia Mudavadi goes to the Kenyan history as the shortest serving vice president. He served as a vice president for less than 3 months. And he lost an election when he was actually to Akaranga when he was a vice president. And did you ever hear about Musalia Mudavadi again? No, you never heard about him, and it completely disappeared from the political scene. And now he has rebranded himself. If, for example, this year, anything to go by, if, for example, for purposes of winning an election, if, for example, NASA wins an election, he's the kingmaker.
Actually, it's one of the principles, John.
It's one of the principles.
Yes.
So what am I saying? Do not write off any politician. As long as someone is not 6 feet under, never write them off.
So Peter Kenneth is not yet done.
He's not yet done. For sure, he's not. But again, the examples he has given are the same things I wanted actually to highlight, like Anyang'. I actually wanted to say that if Peter Kenneth wants to understand the dangers and risks of going as a Lone Ranger, then he needs to ask Anyang'. And interestingly, he's giving the same example to support.
But you dismissed him completely.
No, what I said for sure is that if he does not stop the Lone Ranger kind of politics and join the other political players, he's going to diminish, and his political career will actually end before it begins. And actually, I wanted to say he should learn from Anyang' when he was in SDP and thinking, that time Anyang' and Charity Ngilu, they were subscribing to this socialist kind of an agenda. They were the far left politicians, and at that time. It was, remember Masaya Yangilu. People were very excited about that. But remember, it did not go anywhere. And he had to go back home. Where? To his political strong base, where Raila is a king. He had to go there and pledge his loyalty to Raila.
It's the same approach that PK might take.
Exactly.
One final comment about Nairobi politics.
Yeah.
Position yourself as Kidero. Yeah. Does it necessarily mean he's smiling all the way to the bank with this kind of conflict within Jubilee? Of course, Peter Kenneth is independent, but he was a Jubilee member.
If I'm Kidero, I am a very worried man. I'm a very worried man because, first of all, I'm the incumbent. Number two, the politics against the sitting governor is right now too much. The stakes are extremely high. I think he has to go completely overdrive in terms of ensuring that he recaptures the seat. Because the support that Mbuvi Songo is receiving from the ground is shaking him, completely shaking him to the core. If the opinion polls are anything to go by, I think the opinion poll came out yesterday info track. And you see...
It was neck and neck, yeah.
Neck
One
and
had
neck.
47 and the other 46, roughly.
47 and 46, neck to neck. So I think Nairobi is too soon to call. It's too soon to call. But Kidero is not sitting pretty in terms of being assured that he will get this. And they know this. There are politicians that have been at it for many years. I'm sure they are going overdrive in terms of campaigning. And that also brings up the question of the 6-piece voting. It might just not happen in Nairobi.
Position yourself as Dr. Evans Kidero.
Is a person who is besieged, I would say. And I know you would have a problem because Sonko is a very, very fluid politician. He's not very, very predictable. And like now, the impetus he has been given over this weekend, I expect to see him come out more strongly than he had been doing before. So Kidero cannot sit pretty. I think politics will be very hot on him. And the Jubilee brigade is now guns blazing. You have seen also someone like Sakaja seems to have hit the campaign trail very well, and he seems to be selling much, much better than his opponent. So Kidero, I don't think he's going to be pretty.
I think we've been a bit biased to the other candidates. Of course, we're going to talk about Miguna, and the rest were still on the ballot, and they're still eyeing Nairobi's,
we'll talk about
Nairobi's top seat. Yeah. And we're going to take a very short break, but remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta is at this moment addressing his supporters in Mandera County. We're going to get some of the pictures from there any moment from now. And the NASA Brigade, under the leadership of the presidential candidate Raila Odinga, are also at this moment at the coast, to be specific, in Lamu County. We're also keeping a keen eye on that. We have a lot of things to discuss today, clearly. It is a busy day, politically speaking. I will be right back after this short break. Don't go.